Alrighty, folks, it's time for another episode of Ben Reacts, thanks to President Joe Biden, who tonight pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, in the most expected scandal of recent memory. President Joe Biden, who had vowed that he would not, in fact, pardon his son, Hunter Biden, on gun and tax-related charges, he was lying. Who knew? Except for everyone, because, of course, President Joe Biden has always been a super corrupt and venal politician. Those convictions did not get to the root of the matter with regard to Hunter Biden, which was he in fact a bag man for daddy?
Ben Shapiro has strongly criticized President Joe Biden for pardoning his son, Hunter, which has sparked a lot of controversy. First, let's take a look at the moment Ben Shapiro discusses the consequences of this surprising decision.
In fact, from the very beginning of his career, he was attempting to make money for members of his family, whether we were talking about his brothers, whether we were talking about his kids, whether we were talking about his sister, whether we were talking about his entire family. His entire family has been the beneficiary of his political largesse. They've all used his name in order to pull down sacks of cash, and Hunter Biden, of course, was most famous.
Ben Shapiro began his reaction by addressing what he sees as blatant corruption within the Biden family, focusing on Hunter Biden's history of leveraging his father's political influence. He emphasized that this pardon was not surprising to anyone familiar with Joe Biden's career. Ben believes that Joe Biden has always used his position to financially benefit his family, whether it be his siblings, children, or extended relatives.
Whether he was attempting to take down sacks of cash from the Chinese with 10% held in trust for the big guy. That is according, again, to contemporaneous emails that were found on the Hunter Biden laptop, which were then covered up by the media and, of course, by the intelligence community, which claimed that it was probably Russian disinformation.
Shapiro argues that Hunter Biden is a prime example of corruption. From his position at Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company, to his business dealings with China, Hunter has profited massively despite lacking relevant expertise. Shapiro also highlighted the well-known 10% for the big guy reference from emails on Hunter's laptop, a detail long buried by mainstream media and intelligence officials. To Shapiro, the laptop scandal exposes how the media worked to shield the Biden family.
That last year, there was a huge scandal because the special counsel, a person named David Weiss, first attempted to bury the Hunter Biden charges, particularly when it came to the question of Foreign Agent Registration Act violations, tax felonies, whether Joe Biden was in fact involved in all of this. He attempted a plea deal with Hunter Biden that would have allowed him to get off scot-free, essentially, with some probation and some community service.
Shapiro recalled the special counsel David Weiss's earlier attempts to minimize Hunter's charges. Initially, Weiss had negotiated a plea deal that would have allowed Hunter to escape serious consequences, Shapiro claimed. However, the judge overseeing the case saw through what Shapiro described as a corrupt arrangement and struck it down. Ultimately, Hunter faced multiple charges, including felony and misdemeanor tax offenses and lying on a gun form. But Shapiro argued these convictions only scratched the surface of Hunter's alleged crimes.
In the end, the judge blew that up because the judge looked at the deal and realized that the deal was in fact unbelievably corrupt, and there was no way to even pretend that it wasn't. So in the end, David Weiss and company at the DOJ, they had to go back to the drawing board, and eventually the judge in that particular case accepted a guilty plea in a 9-count indictment, 3 felony tax offenses, 6 misdemeanor tax offenses, as well as a gun charge because he had lied on his gun intake form.
The real scandal in Ben's view was Hunter's potential role as a financial middleman for his father. Shapiro highlighted text messages from Hunter to his children, where he implied he was paying the family's bills. To Shapiro, this left no doubt that Hunter was funneling money to Joe Biden through his business deals.
Those convictions did not get to the root of the matter with regard to Hunter Biden, which was he in fact a bag man for daddy? I mean, we have texts from Hunter Biden to his own children suggesting that he paid the family bills. So the chances that he was not in fact a bag man for the Biden family are pretty much zero.
Shapiro pointed out the timing of these convictions, which he claimed coincided with efforts to prosecute Donald Trump. He suggested this was a deliberate strategy by the Department of Justice to appear impartial, punishing Hunter to justify their aggressive pursuit of Trump. According to Ben, this was always part of the Biden administration's game plan. to appear fair while shielding Joe Biden from scrutiny.
Everyone all over the world knew that Daddy was the one with the weight, and they figured that by paying Hunter Biden, they would basically buy off Daddy. This was always the bargain. Hunter Biden basically admitted as much. He went on national television, and he was asked whether he would have ever obtained any of these highly paid foreign jobs if not for his last name, and he said no.
When Joe Biden publicly stated he would not pardon his son, Shapiro saw it as a calculated lie. Ben argued that this week's pardon proved what Republicans had been saying all along. The justice system under Biden is deeply politicized.
And he said no. Well, Hunter Biden, again, gets convicted. He goes to jail. That happens back in September. And part of the reason why this happened back in September is because, as you'll recall, there were still ongoing questions as to whether Donald Trump was going to go to jail. So one of the ways that the DOJ responded to allegations of impropriety and corruption in going after Donald Trump was to convict Hunter Biden, the president's son, on this variety of charges without ever touching Joe Biden. So the idea was the DOJ was definitely not corrupt because, after all, the DOJ went out of its way to go after the president's son, even if it was leaving the president of the United States.
Shapiro dissected the sweeping nature of the pardon, which covered not only Hunter's convictions, but any potential offenses from 2014 to 2024. This, according to Ben, was an unprecedented abuse of presidential power, designed to protect the entire Biden family from further legal jeopardy.
If his son was in fact convicted, he would not pardon him. And then after his son was convicted, he still said that he would not pardon him. You remember this? Well, it turns out that he was lying all along. So tonight, we find out that he was not only pardoned on the charges for which he ended up being criminally convicted or pleading guilty, he was actually pardoned with regard to anything he did between period January 1, 2014 and December 1st, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted, including any that have resulted in convictions by special counsel David C. Weiss.
Shapiro also criticized the official statement from Joe Biden regarding the pardon. In the statement, Biden portrayed Hunter as a victim of selective prosecution, citing his addiction struggles and claiming the charges were politically motivated. Shapiro dismissed this as self-serving rhetoric, pointing out that many Americans face harsher consequences for similar offenses. To Ben, Hunter's lifestyle and actions disqualified him from the sympathetic narrative Joe Biden was attempting to create.
Joe Biden released is really self-serving, as you would imagine. I mean, of course, it has to be self-serving, given the fact that, of course, this is the president pardoning his own son. And understand the corruption here. The entire attempt to convict Hunter Biden was done as a balancing act in order to demonstrate that they were not, in fact, a tool of the Democratic administration.
Shapiro argues that Hunter Biden's long history of scandals made him an unlikely victim. He mentioned Hunter's relationships, his personal indiscretions, and his financial dealings as evidence of a deeply flawed individual who had consistently benefited from his father's power. Shapiro found it laughable that Joe Biden would frame Hunter as a martyr while simultaneously undermining the justice system through the pardon.
We can prosecute Donald Trump willy-nilly, but we're not biased because we are also prosecuting Hunter. But Republicans were saying, well, yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, except that Joe is going to pardon Hunter the minute that he has the opportunity to do so. So it's all a fake. And Joe's like, no, I would never do that. I'm never going to. Well, it turns out we were all right. It was a fake.
Shapiro turned his attention to the broader implications of this pardon. To him, this was not just about Hunter. It was about Joe Biden shielding himself from accountability. By pardoning Hunter, Joe Biden effectively ended any investigations that could have connected him to his son's business deals. Shapiro argued that this was a direct attack on the rule of law and a clear sign of corruption at the highest level of government.
Today, I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word, even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who are late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear Hunter was treated differently. Ah, yes, it turns out Joe Biden isn't doing this because Hunter is his son. It's because Hunter was unfairly victimized by the Department of Justice, unlike Donald Trump.
The narrative from Joe Biden's camp, Shapiro claimed, was designed to distract from the real issue: Joe Biden's involvement in Hunter's business dealings. Shapiro viewed the pardon as an admission of guilt by the president, a desperate move to prevent damaging revelations. He emphasized that this pardon set a dangerous precedent, undermining the credibility of the justice system.
Only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal agreed to by the DOJ unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. That, of course, is not what the judge said.
As the episode concluded, Shapiro reiterated his belief that this scandal exposed the Biden administration's corruption. He encouraged his audience to stay informed and join the conversation on platforms like Daily Wire, where he promised to delve deeper into this issue in upcoming episodes. And there you have it, the moment Ben Shapiro underscores the ongoing battle for the integrity of American institutions. This case serves as a powerful reminder of the dangers of power being misused and the importance of staying vigilant. For Shapiro, the Hunter Biden pardon wasn't just politics. It was a glaring example of corruption that must be challenged. What's your take? Is this a turning point in the fight against corruption, or just another example of political controversy? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more insights into today's most pressing issues.